Stephen's an engineer, formerly in the army in the elite Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, the practical scientist to complement Elizabeth, the lover of nature.
We looked to see if we could come up with a house that brought all this together.
They found inspiration for an ambitious new home in the strangest of objects.
We were having a discussion with an architect, and on our kitchen table was an ammonite, a fossil, and the idea just grew from that conversation.
Evolved from that.
The general shape of the house is part of an ammonite sitting into the hill. This is not a place for straight line, angular piece of architecture.
Their house will sit in open countryside, outside any planning envelope, in an area of outstanding natural beauty. The planning application had to be what's known as paragraph 55, for a building of outstanding architectural and environmental merit, and it was subject to a lot of scrutiny from the planners. Just explain to me this house, where it sits, what it is, what's special about it, how it works.
Well, it's a very unusual shape, a curving house, and it's sitting in this very unusual and beautiful position. The building will sort of sit back into this hillside a bit and being covered with a lot of different coloured timber panels, a kind of irregular patchwork.
You want to try and then reproduce the haphazard arrangement of rectangles and squares that you see on those,
yes,
that farm or that
I
farm
think so.
or that farm.
Yeah.
It's reflecting the textures of this landscape actually in the roof of the building.
What you will see from over the valley looking back is this beautiful meadow, which in May and June is just full of wildflowers. Wow. And that will literally wash right up to the building.
So let me ask you, why are you doing this?
For me, it's a lifelong ambition to achieve something like this. There aren't many new houses that have been built in this countryside. So we wanted to sort of show how you can put a new building in a very old and ancient piece of land.
You must feel excited by the idea of being able to build this prototype piece of engineering.
Yeah. It's got an innovative laminated wooden structure, which has a load-bearing skin, as well as load-bearing wooden beams.
Yeah.
Photovoltaic cells actually integrated into the structure of the roof. Having a piece of sculpture and really high technology sitting in an ancient wildflower meadow, well, if that's not going to rejuvenate anybody, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Although aided by an architect, this is Stephen's vision. The technical challenge of pulling it off sits with him. So much of this building is curved, even the minimal foundations, which will spiral across the site. And on top of these, they'll build up blockwork and stone walls to support 38 giant curved glulam beams. The timber skeleton will then be braced with more wood, and the roof structure built up, culminating in a diamond pattern of timber cladding in different types of wood, interset with an array of high-performing curved solar panels. The visual effect of this will be extraordinary, like a snake curled up in a field. In terms of layout, it's an upside-down house with bedrooms downstairs, a master suite at one end with guest bedroom behind, separated by a hall from two further bedrooms alongside two storerooms and Stephen's plant room. Upstairs, there'll be a fifth bedroom and a study, a magnificent double-height atrium, and a remarkable open-plan kitchen dining space with great views out over the Blackdown Hills. There's also a TV room hidden to one side. Curiously, the only part of this building that isn't spiral-shaped. As the spiral tightens, so the rooms too become smaller. Off a corridor, you'll find a toilet, pantry, study and utility room. Although at the front, there'll be a greenhouse made from tensioned, high-tech curved plastic. Behind this, they plan a carport and a workshop. In the centre of this bold, beautiful building will be Elizabeth's ornamental garden. It looks incredibly complicated and expensive, a rough estimate of £2 million project, but their budget's £600,000. Thank goodness they didn't have to pay for the land, which came with their current house down the hill. Is that all nailed down? Have you kind of got costs allocated now? Have you got a budget pinned down with quotations?
It's not entirely pinned down. There are a few quotations still to come in. We're under no illusions about building this. For a lot of my career, I've been spent working right at the forefront of a number of technologies, but it's never been...
It's never been personal.
Going to be interesting to see how we do it. It is exciting.
Yeah, the adventure never stops. It's both exciting, exhilarating, and also terrifying at the same time. Not to mention ambitious. They want to move in just 12 months. But they have sold their current home to pay for their project, which they're now renting back. In midsummer, the spiral shape starts to emerge in lightweight concrete foundations. With Stephen at work in London, Elizabeth's project manager, while builder Jason is running the site.
There's nothing straightforward about this build, that's for sure. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, to say the least. There's nothing straight on it at all. Everything is round.
The spiral whorls in Stephen and Elizabeth's house are found all across the natural world, in the patterns of water as it goes down the plug hole, a fern frond unfurling in a forest, or a storm system brewing over the Atlantic. It is the Fibonacci spiral, a shape which underscores harmony, proportion, and beauty in the universe. A timeless curve, one which Stephen and Elizabeth are using as a guide, a template for the design of their building. And frankly, one which is also a bit of a pig to build to. Well, if anyone's up to the challenge, it's Stephen. Not only has he spent a lifetime pushing the boundaries of engineering, innovation runs in the family. This is the house he grew up in the 1960s, designed by his dad, and ahead of its time not just because it was the first house in the village to have central heating.
We had a big wall here which would slide across, another wall here which would slide across here. We had a big party, we could open the whole house up, or we could play table tennis in it, so you could reconfigure the internal layout of the house depending on what you wanted to use it for. Quite remarkable for its day. Having lived in a house like this, there's something in the blood that's made me want to do it myself.
In September, 4 months closer to their 12-month deadline, Stephen launches into the first major bit of experimental engineering, the Fibonacci curved roof beams.
These aren't easy to make. There's a lot to it.
They're called glue lamps, or glue laminated timber, layers of larch stuck together, then bent round a metal mould to form a permanent shape once dried. The house requires 38 spiral-shaped beams of assorted sizes.
Really beautiful, and I love the different knots and textures in it. Wonderful. It's a classic bit of design, form and function. It's doing its job and it looks beautiful.
On site, Jason's furiously preparing for the roof beams to arrive, building up the blockwork walls on which they'll sit. It's precise, difficult, stressful work, because the walls, like the foundations, must be curved.
Every single block you lay, you've got to keep checking it off our datum mark.
The position of the walls has to be measured from several points, datums like these. It's critical every measurement is checked because there's not just one single radius here, it's a spiral.
If we're 10, 15, 20 mil out, by the time the glue lam roof section comes, which is all come in, notched out, ready just to sit on the frames, it's just not going to fit. So it's a bit of pressure on us.
A setting out mistake now could mean, worst case, the roof being remade at huge expense. This building is demanding such precision, it's pushing the builders somewhat to the limit.
I've got 2 10s here now.
All thanks to that golden ratio which has influenced engineers and architects for centuries, the Fibonacci spiral. So you can see from this ground plan that the building is a Fibonacci spiral that opens up, exploiting the energy of that shape. But for Stephen, one Fibonacci spiral is not enough, because what he wants is, as you walk through the building, to experience the energy of that shape again and again and again. The arches that make up the curved walls, the arches themselves are going to be Fibonacci shaped. Again and again And again. I mean, it's going to involve a huge amount of calculation, lots of templating, quite a bit of wastage, and an enormous amount of head scratching to get these shapes to join up and form these beautiful compound curves. I really, really, really hope it's worth it. In the Blackdown Hills, the rather epic spiral-shaped roof beams have arrived from the factory. Stephen works in London during the week, so it's entirely up to Elizabeth to supervise the team on site.
It's a bit like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. They're very good at working it all out and getting it all in order so they can take each piece off the top of the pile, hopefully, and slot it into place. But they're very, very heavy and difficult to manoeuvre because of the funny, weird shape.
The curved timbers come in 3 sizes, small ones for the workshop, medium-sized ones for the living space, and XL ones for the study area.
Right, it's all yours.
They've got no crane, they've got no lift.
All right?
I do not know how they do it.
Shawnee, back.
They've just got, you know, brawn.
Back. Lift. Yeah, that's not too bad there.
And a lot of hoping and praying.
Forward.
They've done their best to precision engineer the beams, so they should land delicately on the concrete blocks positioned outside the building.
Of course they're going to fit, yeah. Yeah, they will fit.
Do you want to step back and I'll pull this end round?
Everything so far has fitted almost perfectly.
Just move, just stand back from it. It's got to go over.
No sooner said.
Yeah, that one there, it's got to go back here.
2 beams have slightly missed their mark.
Something hasn't quite met. No one's ever done this before, and I don't think anyone quite knew exactly how it was going to work.
They're going to have to think on their feet and fill some big gaps with concrete. I'm surprised there haven't been more problems. Nature finds the golden or Fibonacci spiral an easy shape to create through growth. Human beings have to work harder, which is why few dare imitate its forms on such an epic scale. One rare example can be found at the Eden Project, the breathtaking indoor rainforest in Cornwall, loved by horticulturalist Elizabeth. The core building here, designed by Nicholas Grimshaw, provides the experience of what it might feel like to be inside one of nature's spirals. Like being a snail shell or an ammonite, it's these patterns that cross are very floral, like a sunflower.
Yeah, beautiful.
Is there something in inhabiting a natural form that is emotional?
I think as humans, we love that feeling of enclosure and curves and encompassing and embracing and wrapping around you. And it's not all physical, it's mental and psychological as well.
You know, now we're inside this building, I understand its relationship to what you're doing. The spiral is so evident in that, and the use of glue-laminated timber, the idea of, you know, the compound curves is all here. It's fantastic. Except this place cost £12.5 million to shape and wrangle. Stephen and Elizabeth have just £600,000 and a handful of craftsmen. They get to work filling in the roof area with purlins, struts that tie the great roof beams together. But because of the double curvature of the building, no 2 are the same. All 600 have to be made bespoke.
Everyone's individual. All the edge cuts are different. We cut a rough length to where the purlin is going to be positioned. We offer it up onto the correct markings and cut it, and then hopefully it should fit.
It's brain-aching work. But this is what you get when you deviate from the norm and leave behind the familiar rectangles of architecture. Everything takes longer. In this case, they're already 7 months into a 12-month schedule. The next step in forming the snaking shape of their roof is one that'll add more strength. It comes in the unlikely form of sterling board, which is laid in a diagonal pattern and applied first on the workshop.
Oh my word, look at this, look. And not only is this sterling board, which is like chipboard, not only is it curving that way, but it's just curving that way and that way. It's a compound curve. It's like the front of an E-type Jaguar. Look, it's made by gluing more than one layer of this board together so that it retains its shape, but fundamentally stretching it in big rectangles over the thing diagonally. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's the shape of things to come.
It's an ingenious, low-cost way to hold the building together.
When it's on, it becomes a stressed skin, doesn't it? And it actually contributes to the strength of it.
Yeah, with a structural material.
The trick here is to use thin stuff.
Yes, and laminate it.
Yeah, a little bit like paper, gluing paper together to make cardboard, isn't it?
That's
exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
Magic of glue.
What would we do without it?
Well, you wouldn't be able to build this.
No, you wouldn't, no.
Stephen helped develop this idea, but from afar. He works in London all week, every week, keeping the money coming in as the chief executive of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers.
Is that what we should do rather than increasing the supply into them?
In the evening, he concentrates on the project, problem solving out of a small flat.
It's a bit frustrating not to be able to spend a bit more time there. We swap a lot of drawings by WhatsApp, sending photographs to each other, and we're on the phone probably, I don't know, once or twice a day to the architect. It'd be nice to be a bit more hands-on.
While Stephen's stuck up in London all week, Elizabeth's kept busy, not least landscaping, a key part of the overall project.
As part of the planning permission, we had to show that we're enhancing this landscape. We have to plant a native hedge along the track here. This is a really fun bit for me. I love this bit, although it's hard work. Hello, Arthur.
Her daughter and grandchildren, plus a family friend, drop by to give her a hand, although usually Elizabeth has to crack on by herself.
Where is it at the top?
Brilliant. If you come round this side, Matt. It does get lonely sometimes. You do get used to it. We've done it for a very long time. He's on his own in London, or away working, although he's with people a lot more than I am. There's no denying there's definitely times when you much prefer not to be on your own.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm planting these little hedging plants.
I can do it. I'm a strong boy. You want the fork?
I don't need the fork at the moment, thank you.
Stephen and Elizabeth will retire here together, eventually. Stephen's very keen to make that happen. Before the year's up, he makes a rare visit to site during the working week to see the house at a critical stage. The labour-intensive craftsmanship that's gone into the roof is paying off.
Where are we going? Up through...
We're going through the back door.
Yeah.
And it's starting to look spectacular.
Oh, heavens. It's beautiful. It is like a giant little section of a fan vault in a medieval cathedral. Beautiful. Tell me, the insulation for this ceiling, is that sitting on top of that sterling board, or is it sitting below it in between the ribs?
It's below it. You'll see the ribs. You'll see about 4 inches in old money.
That'll do nicely, just to be able to kind of understand the structure of the building. It's spectacular.
But all the time that's gone into making this is eating into Stephen and Elizabeth's £600,000 budget. They're paying builders by the day.
This has really tested our comfort zone, I think, in lots of ways, not least the bank balance.
So, how much have you spent so far, then?
We have a detailed budget, which we're keeping a close track on, and we're about a third of the way through.
In terms of
Budget.
in terms of checks,
Yeah.
money's transferred, yes.
And that's about where we expect it to be.
Good.
Generally, we're okay. We've got a couple of unknowns we're still trying to finalise. So that's interesting.
The big unknown expense is how much it'll cost to waterproof and clad their curved roof. No company in Britain's ever done one like it, so all the quotes have a risk quotient heavily priced in. It could cost 200 grand, almost a third of their budget, and in London, Stephen's obsessing over it.
You can make this immensely expensive, this building, so the real challenge is not only making it stand up, but making it affordable. This new roof construction is causing us a bit of the odd sleepless night at the moment.
For you or I to build a house that's unconventional, that isn't square, I mean, that would be madness, wouldn't it? But for Stephen, it's sort of just another evolutionary step in his career. He's an engineer, he's used to experimenting. It's exciting, but it also brings with it another very big question, which is how much is it going to cost? Because when you go the unconventional route, it does cost.
It's taken 9 months and £200,000 to lay down the basic shape of Stephen and Elizabeth's complex curved building in Devon. But how on earth are they going to come up with a cost-effective way to keep it dry?
For the look of the building and its setting, we wanted to have a timber-clad building. To get that, we had to look at a system to weatherproof it, so we went for the membrane system. The problem with that is if you try and fix timber onto a membrane, you're going to puncture it at every point.
The risk and difficulty in waterproofing the building mean the quotes are quite staggering, at around £200,000. So, Stephen's devised his own devilishly clever double membrane system.
This is a mock-up of the fixing system for the cladding. These fixings here actually screw onto the roof over the membrane, the waterproof membrane, and this membrane then goes over that penetration through the roof, and then this is then welded and sealed on top. And then we're fixing wooden battens over the whole of the roof in a grid to create the decorative textured finish across the roof and keep the whole thing waterproof. I have to say I'm feeling a lot happier about it.
As he should. His is one of the great British problem-solving engineering minds. He knows his system won't cost 200 grand, although he doesn't know exactly what it will cost. In March, as the waterproof membrane goes on, Stephen and Elizabeth start the second part of Stephen's roofing system. And as with everything on this project, it's mind-bogglingly tricky.
What we're trying to do now is put a wooden cladding of different textures and sizes of wood completely over the top of this roof. Marking that out requires this quite complicated grid.
They're marking out the points that the cladding will fix to.
That's the centre line of bolts. Okay.
Yeah, it's not as neat as on the other side.
No.
The grid has to be accurate, otherwise it simply will not appear fluidly shaped and beautiful.
If they're more than a centimetre out, you're fired.
Nobody wants it to look wonky.
Bit of a wobble there. It's not very good, this square. Keeps going inaccurate.
Well, you know what they say about bagged workmen, don't you?
You can see all the alterations we had where things went slightly awry. My square wasn't square, which caused a little bit of a problem. Especially when I didn't notice. Oh yeah, that's better.
It's more brain-ache work that'll take days and days to set out.
Right, can I leave you to it then? There's only another 500 to do.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
2 months later, and the site is a frenzy of activity. Inside, insulation's being sprayed into the roof and walls of the building. While outside, using Elizabeth's markings, the builders have fixed and bent heavy green oak strips over the roof, using Stephen's cleverly devised system.
The first day we were on it, it was a trial and error, really. Again, really learning where to join them. Because of the stress, you're putting the battens under, because they're going 2 ways. Obviously, they're going over, and they're trying to twist them around as well.
Across these runners, we'll bend 3 different sorts of wood: red cedar, English larch, and Siberian larch. Some of it they're burning.
Scorching not only gives it a very good weather permeable layer, but it also, we hope, will tie in and provide some extra texture to the roof. Let's go.
That's going.
And also tie in with the photovoltaic panels. That's the idea, anyway.
So, they fire up the flamethrower.
Horrible noise. It's nice and stripy, that stuff.
In and amongst all this unconventional building work to create this experimental home, something even stranger has emerged at the back of the building. A mysterious copper-clad structure.
What a remarkable piece of the building this is. Pyramidal, as though it's out of Stargate, clad with these beautiful copper tiles, like the scales of an animal. It's quite extraordinary, very powerful. What is it? It's the TV room.
By the end of the year, Stephen and Elizabeth are 7 months over their 12-month deadline and down to their last pennies, at which point the final bill for the waterproof roof system comes in at still over £70,000.
The roof has been very complicated shape, and that is where most of the additional cost has come.
They decide to sell their flat in London to pay outstanding bills and keep the project running. So, work on the interior continues apace.
The trouble with painting, it takes forever preparing.
Painting the main living area.
It's a bit like mowing the lawn. It's lovely when it's done.
Tiling the bathrooms and plastering in the study.
We've got 12 of these put together. It's really boring.
Elizabeth, meanwhile, is working on an idea to bring nature into the interior.
They're wildflowers pressed into clay and then taken out again, and then you fill the indentation with plaster, peel away the clay, and you've got the flowers in relief. Somehow pastry isn't as hard as this. Our idea is that we will set them into the wall in one of the passages.
Back on site, the high-tech thin and flexible solar panels have arrived from Wales, where they're made.
We've got 33 panels to fit on the roof. Every single panel is bespoke. Every one has been cut to a template. We've got a plan, so every single panel has an individual position. So we're essentially, fixed into an organic building with a curved shape.
Each one is different and beautiful. I think they're the most radical feature of this building yet.
Morning, gents. Can I walk across here?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
This advanced, ecological, low-energy house sits in a prominent position, so it has to deliver. It has to be also polished and beautiful, and it seems to be shaping up that way, outside and in.
This is phenomenal. It's got a lovely, charming 1950s quality, the staircase, hasn't it? How long to make the handrail?
About a month.
A month? Just the handrail?
Yeah, and about a week just for the bottom curves.
Wow. Hey, you want to understand what craftsmanship is?
I know.
Time.
Yes.
If nothing else, time and talent. It's multiple of both.
Yes.
This is gorgeous.
It's beautiful, isn't
Very
it?
tactile, isn't it?
It's extremely tactile. Not from any angle in any place is it ugly. It's beautiful from wherever you look.
We really wanted this kind of shape because it's echoing all the other...
The bow.
Yeah.
But all this craftsmanship has pushed them even further over their £600,000 budget. The chief culprit is the rather complicated roof. So in midwinter, they make the serious decision to clad it themselves to save money, with the help of their son-in-law.
We're trying to make panels of different types of wood and varying widths of wood to give different patterns and textures.
Because of the curved roof, every piece of wood has to be cut to a different length.
Can I have 7 bits running from 64 to 60 and a half in the black?
You may.
Only a mind like Stephen's could cope with such hellishly complicated work.
Another 7 pieces cut to precision.
Flipping it, she's cut them all the wrong side.
You cut the first one.
There's over 550 square metres of roof to cover. Stephen's job is to screw the panels on, and occasionally to try it on.
I've got a next order.
No.
Can we have two white coffees?
No.
And some cocoa?
No.
This is the standard of support we get up here. I was quite keen to put our own feel into the passions and shapes of this roof. I was quite keen to put a bit of us into doing this.
The idea is the pattern on the roof will somehow reflect the diamond-shaped fields in the valley. It promises to look absolutely spectacular, but it's now all down to Stephen and Elizabeth, who have turned into true self-builders.
I'm hoping it's not going to take forever.
It's over 2 years since I first met Stephen and Elizabeth, who are on the point of building an advanced 21st century home in the Blackdown Hills, an area of outstanding natural beauty in Devon. Their inspiration? The shape of a fossil.
Oh my word. That is beautiful. I haven't seen this house without its scaffolding. It's like a wooden spaceship. For the first time standing here, you can see how those Fibonacci golden section curves reach out and embrace the building over the top of it. It's genius, that.
Both the curves and the diamond patterns echo the undulations and layouts of the surrounding fields. No ordinary rectangular building could do this, could make the same powerful connection to landscape.
Oh, hello. Hiya. Hiya.
Oh, good to see you.
And, well, and you, and very good to see your house.
Good to see you.
It just gets better and better as you approach. This curves, it curves around, it entices you, it kind of draws you. It's such a great shape. I just want to stand and just drink in those shapes.
The spiral shape gives the impression of a snake basking on the hillside. But constructing it required a rigorous mathematical and physical effort, not least by Elizabeth and Stephen, who sawed and screwed the 4,600 timber panels that cover it.
And I have to stop and just acknowledge for a moment the dedication, the perseverance, the work, and the complete and total absence of health and safety Yeah, I'm pleased to see you both in one piece.
Well, we are in one piece, yes.
There's just this pair of you up on this giant curve. In the wind, nails flying.
Yeah, well, it's been every weekend doing this roof since last January. It's now September.
And is it finished?
Now it's finished, yes.
And worth it?
Undoubtedly. I mean, look what we've got. It's just the most wonderful building.
So, into the belly.
The belly of the dragon.
The curved hallway playfully withholds views of what's to come, while offering up curiosities of its own.
These are these amazing panels you've made. They are astonishing.
Well, they're all flowers that grow in the field,
From
right
here.
out there.
Yeah. What's extraordinary is that the clay takes the imprint of these so well, you know, that
I know,
every tiny frond and
The detail
petal.
is so crisp.
So, the curve is pulling
It's
us in.
beginning.
Yeah?
Hopefully, it's beginning.
The hall leads to the centrepiece of this home, an open-plan living space where lateral and vertical curves combine to breathtaking effect.
I'm standing in a building where I don't feel as though I want to say very much. I just want to stand here and just let it embrace me. I'm finding my job quite hard to do here because I'm normally standing in buildings kind of, you know, enthusing about them and waxing and being, you know, kind of energetic about them. And what this building is doing to me is it's kind of giving us a gentle shoulder rub, you know. I'm kind of being lulled by it, almost. It's absolutely great. I mean, congratulations, because it's done so finely, you know, with such attention to detail and such precision.
Well, thank you.
A kitchen, dining room and sitting room are all accommodated here, with the boxy TV room off to one side.
I'm extremely relieved to see that you haven't got a kind of golden section spiral kitchen worktop. You've simply rounded the corners of a rectangular one, which is...
Was that cheating a bit?
Well, no, I don't think it's cheating at all. I think you should give yourself a slightly easier time. Some things work as rectangles, don't they? More or less. You know. I like particularly standing here and looking at the curves of the visible rafters inside and seeing them continue miraculously outside like great big flying buttresses. But they're one and the same thing. It's the same piece of timber, isn't it? Coming from outside to in, which is...
And it really does emphasise it, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's not faked, you know. It is the same bit of wood. It's actually one of my favourite views of the building, I think, that.
Every time one looks at a different bit of this house or walks through it, when the light's different, the weather's different, you see a different aspect to it. It's quite remarkable.
It continues to surprise us.
Yeah. Even when the grandchildren are in here trying to demolish it at the same time.
Also on this floor is the conservatory, snuck between the external skin and the building itself. Offices for Stephen and Elizabeth, and a guest bedroom.
I'm coming down holding on to both handrails, not because I'm scared, but because I'm enjoying the experience twofold.
Hunkered down below are 3 more bedrooms and the master suite, which has a generous window overlooking the valley below.
What a thing to wake up to in the morning.
Well, the original idea of the house was always that it sits right down in the meadow, and the day the grass has been cut in June, July, the grass is tickling at the window. There's a butterfly on the thing there, and on the joist there.
Yeah, well, lovely. I mean, and it means that when you're lying in bed at head height, the grass and the flowers are just waving there.
You can actually see it.
So the birds will come and feed and...
Well, they do. And we have a pair of binoculars each, so we can sit in bed and...
Instant wildlife spotting.
One morning we were in bed, sitting up, looking out, and 2 or 3 deer, 2 deer very slowly walked past this window. wandered off down the field.
Magical.
It is really lovely.
But there is something about the Fibonacci sequence, about the golden section, about the spiral, which adds a spiritual dimension to this building that it otherwise wouldn't have. Does it make a difference?
Well, I feel very strongly that it does. Could have made this space in a straight line.
You could.
Made it all straight, it's the same space, and you could have made it just circular. It would not have been the same. And I don't know why. So perhaps there is some kind of spiritual dimension in all of this. It's very difficult to describe, but that sense of emotion and excitement is really what describes this house.
Only by promising a home of outstanding architectural merit were Stephen and Elizabeth permitted to build here. But it delivers more. The golden section, or Fibonacci spiral, represents growth, explaining, I think, why architects have always been drawn to its proportions. Growth to us signifies life, vitality, a quality so very often missing in more conventional buildings. Construction took a year longer than planned and the 600 grand budget was blown. But what price? Beauty, vitality and life.
So how much did it cost you to build?
I think the construction costs probably just under 800,000.
Okay, so that's 2,500, say, a square metre is pretty darn good.
Is it?
Well, I think so. For effectively a paragraph 55 house in open countryside of exceptional merit, yes. Yes.
Good.
2.5 grand is great. You should be proud of that. You're only up the hill from where you were living before. I mean, you know, so what does this building give you that the old house didn't?
We see the countryside in a totally different way. You're living in it, you're breathing it, you wake up in it, you work in it, you have to drive through it, and most of all you can see the light and the seasons in a way that you couldn't do from that house. I think the other really big difference is that somebody else built that beautiful house that we used to live in, and we're one of many generations who lived in it. We were the guardians of that for the next generation who lived in it. This is our house. We did this. And I think that's quite a big difference.
And what are you looking forward to?
Not quite sure what we're going to do with ourselves once everything is finished. Well, it never will be, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's going to be quite nice to come home on a Friday evening without a whole load of problems to sort out and a pile of bills. That'll be quite good.
No, next time.
Yeah, I think we've done house building for a while, probably. This is our home.
So, just when you thought architecture was getting a bit dull, and the only way to enjoy a view as beautiful as this is from behind a big glass wall in a box, along comes Stephen and Elizabeth, and they built something like this. Okay, so planning did demand that it should be of outstanding architectural merit, and it is outstanding, but it also stands out